Hi everyone, welcome to the final of our 12 days of SwitchUp.
Yep, day 12 of 2023's 12 days of SwitchUp. And as is tradition, we will be looking today in this final episode at our favourite games for the year. Now, just to make it very clear, these are not the games that got the highest scores on the channel, because it is a very different thing, as much as it might not seem like it at times. These are games that we return to, the games that, you know, despite some flaws perhaps, we just couldn't stop playing. So these are our personal, very subjective favourites.
One final thank you to Untold Tales for sponsoring the entirety of this series. They do have still their 90% sale going on. Please do go check that out. All the information is in the description.
Absolutely. We also have a link to our website down there, switchup.gg, where you can get your eShop cards and you'll get yourself 5% of your purchase price back in cash back and 5% straight discount if you use the code SwitchUp. That plus the sale prices makes for a nice little saving.
All the savings. So what are our best games then personally of 2023? Well, let's find out. And so, my friends, the time has come. The final countdown. Well, it's not the final countdown, it's the last episode. And Glen and I really do want to say to Untold Tales, you've saved Christmas. Yeah, by being the sponsor, we had all kinds of issues behind the scenes. And by sponsoring this series, you've just made it so much easier for us to enjoy ourselves, get on with it, make the content that we want to make. You've never questioned what we say about your games. You let us just do our own thing. And you have really good games to talk about. So yeah, you're absolute legends. But thanks to those guys for sponsoring the entire series. Do please go check out their Untold Tales publisher sale. It's still on, but it does end very shortly. It's 90% off. Grab one of those Untold Tales games. Tell them that it was worth us being sponsored. From Glen and I to the whole Untold Tales team, Merry Christmas. Heads up that we will be announcing the winner of the Nintendo Switch OLED in a community post after this video, so that we can check the comments and stuff, make sure the winner has once again commented on this video and said something, well, said whatever really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that post will go out within a couple of days of this video, once we've obviously just put everything together and looked at what's been said and chosen a winner, of course. And just one more piece of housekeeping before we start the list. I didn't say it in the intro, I forgot. I don't even know if it applies. But for a game to be on this list, it has to have released on the Switch this year. It doesn't mean it hasn't come out elsewhere in a previous year, just to clarify.
All right then, so my fifth best game of the year is Blasphemous 2. I absolutely loved this. It was one of those where I played through the entirety of the game I don't think I had a lot of time to review it, I seem to remember, and literally had to sit there. I think I did like 12 hours on one day.
Oh wow.
It was ludicrous. And then like on to the next day. But it was good enough that was okay.
Yeah.
You know, it was okay. Sometimes that's horrible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But Blasphemous 2 took the first game and it improved on it in a number of areas. It's another one where we've seen a shift towards almost the Metroidvania style, but it's very well designed. You know, it doesn't waste your time. It has methods of getting around quickly. You know generally where you need to go next all the time. Combat was a little, I found, easier than I expected.
Okay. Based on, or compared to the first game maybe?
Just watching, obviously you play the first one, I played a bit of it, and I remember struggling even on like the first or second boss or something. Here I felt like it was easier, but then I saw the comments, people were like, oh, this is really difficult.
Oh, okay.
In between, I have to say, I have done like Elden Ring and a few of like the big Souls-likes, so maybe my brain is just like wired in that way at the moment.
I'll tell you what I found difficult about the combat in the first game. It was the enemy placement at times, like because it was heavily platform based as well. You'd climb up a really long platform, like you know those where you pull yourself up the edge at the end, you've just got up there and then there's an enemy right there that kind of knocks you back down or something. Sometimes it was more that than the actual difficulty of the opponent. Yeah,
and I can see that. Obviously those enemies respawn as well at certain points, so I can definitely see that being a thing. I'd say the placement's probably a little more a little better in this one. Also, it didn't have quite the same the art style went for a slightly different art style in some of the cutscenes.
Oh yeah.
You know, I loved the original like pixelated. They were like grimy.
They were very grimy, yeah.
They've gone for something that's perhaps a little more. I don't even know what you'd say. It's a little cleaner.
Yeah, is it hand drawn this time, or those cutscenes?
Those cutscenes,
yeah.
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's your fifth game of the year then, fifth best. Right, my fifth placed game then, my 5th best game of the year, is one that I did mention in another list, albeit briefly, and that's World of Horror.
World of Horror.
Now, I played this, I mentioned it in an interesting games video, and I hadn't played much of it at that point, and I did say that I would like to do a review for it, but I'm going to be honest, it took me so long to understand this game, longer than any game for a while, that I couldn't dedicate the time to then review it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But having played it a lot more since then, for fun almost, and fully understand the game now, wow, this is a fantastic game. Like, it is shot up almost, you know, if you imagine all the games kind of in their positions, trying to hurry towards first place for the year. This one has just absolutely shot past so many now that I fully understand it, you know?
Okay.
So it's a choose your own adventure, or a text-based adventure game, which is something that we don't see very often at all anymore. Obviously very prevalent back on the home computers. And it uses like a 1 or 2-bit art style.
Yeah.
So monochrome. I think it was all drawn in Microsoft Paint.
It was.
Yeah, I seem to remember reading back when I first started playing it. And obviously every time you make a decision, a new screen comes up, and you have to make those decisions to try and solve what's going on. It's another game that has a touch of Lovecraft about it. It was also heavily influenced by a manga, and the name escapes me now. I do apologise. I will flash it on screen. But I just loved the way that it dealt with what it did. You know, you moved across the town, and you basically have to take on different mysteries. And you have to solve 5 mysteries to collect 5 keys to unlock the lighthouse, which is where the main problem is.
Okay.
To solve the game, you know, and there are different problems each time, and it's got a lot of replayability value for that reason. I've completed it a few times, got a few different endings. It's just such an amazing game once you get your head around what you've got to do and how it works, you know, and that will be a stumbling block for some, but if you can persevere, wow, it is great, really good.
What's interesting, just looking at the eShop, is that the main story you can complete in an hour and a half, but then to do everything, 38 hours.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I must have died, I don't know, 5 times before I finally completed it. So if it goes into a backlog video at some point, my completion time will be about 10 hours, but that one winning run took me about an hour.
Right.
It's just obviously getting good enough at the game that final one happens, you know?
Absolutely. All right. So then from that to our number 4 pick of the year.
Yep.
My number 4 goes to a game that didn't come out this year on other platforms. It might have done actually, maybe early on. But it's Dave the Diver.
Oh, yeah.
I thought this was brilliant. It's weird, isn't it? Because sometimes you hear about games that are really popular. You kind of peer over the fence, look at the game and go, nah, that doesn't interest me. But then you're forced to play it for the review.
Yep.
And you're like, man, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's based on a real life bar owner on an island, and you essentially take on his role. And during the daytime, you go out and you dive below the waves. There's a whole like RPG mechanic in that you can upgrade your dive suit, and that enables you to go further. You can upgrade your weapons. You unlock. It has a bit of a roguelite element.
Yep.
So when you dive under, it's almost like a roguelite in that you want to collect different things and improve yourself for the next time that you go diving.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But you also gather in ingredients so you can make some new recipes in your sushi restaurant during the day.
Yeah.
And that has almost one of those like management, what are they called? Like cookie mummery type games, you know?
Yeah, like resource management or time management.
Yeah. And you have to run up and down as him, as the waiter, serving people in time. You hire different staff. And then the staff hiring reminded me of the old theme hospital games, you know, where you get like their CV. They might be really diligent, but then they're like really messy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love those little details.
Yeah.
Who knows how much it actually affected the game, but it made you feel like you were actually within this little world. I was just so impressed. Yeah, and it still managed to tell stories, or a story, throughout that whole experience. You had a big corporation. There were a group of eco-warriors that were causing a load of grief, and ended up they were being more harm than good kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
Like one of them, you actually have like a little boss fights as well. You fight like an octopus, but you have to fight one of these eco-warriors that comes at you with like a shotgun. So come on now. So it's parodying a lot of the silly things we see in real life. You know, there are good and bad, but there's also a lot of silly stuff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of poking fun at that. But as a game, brilliant. Well worth checking out.
Nice. Yeah, I need to try this one. I've been looking at this one, and definitely it's one I want to play. My 4th place one then, and this kind of proves what we said about scores at the beginning, because this, I believe, was certainly my highest score of the year. I think it was my joint highest score ever on the channel, and it's Super Mario Wonder, but here it sits in 4th place.
Yeah.
Now, I loved this game. I cannot express how much I enjoyed this game, because I was just not expecting much of it at all.
Yeah.
You know, I think I said in another video, I looked at the promotional trailers and whatnot, not hugely, because I like to be surprised.
Yeah.
You know? But from what I did see, I saw Mario turning into an elephant. I saw some other bits and bobs, and I thought, okay, it's going to be your standard run-of-the-mill Mario platformer with a few new power-ups. That I'm a bit bored of that now.
Yeah.
You know, I that doesn't really do it for me anymore. And I saw the Wonder Flower mechanic as well, but it's not that at all. You know, there are elements of that. Don't get me wrong, of course there are, but it's not that. It's the Wonder Flower changes the level. Something happens to the level when you touch it, and you need to get to it again to obviously stop that from happening, or you get to the seed next time, I think. Either way, that's fun. That's a very fun part of the game. It's not even that.
No.
It's just the levels are the best designed levels in a Mario game since Super Mario World, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to say. I took my kids up to EGX in London, and our first experience was playing this there.
Yeah.
And the fact that the levels felt good to me and to a 7-year-old and to a 10-year-old, it was you could tell they'd really perfected that formula.
Absolutely. I played the first couple of levels, and I'm like, it's Mario, And then 3, 4, 5, 6 levels in, I'm like, no, this is not just Mario. This is different. There's something about this, and played a few more, and like, no, they've nailed it. They've remembered whatever magic dust they had in the cupboard, in the drawer that they used for the 16-bit and 8-bit platformers. They've reapplied it here, and you can speed run this game. Not that you can't the old ones, I'm not saying you can't, but the fluidity of movement, the inertia of Mario, the animation style and little bits they've added, they just culminate in the best 2D platform I've played in many a year.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say, and this is very personal, I don't expect others to agree, I do wish they'd moved away from the new Super Mario Brothers art style, because it does, in my opinion, it just paints this game with that old brush again. And although I did mention the animations, and they have added a lot of animations that are there if you care to look, on first glance, it just looks too much like those games still. And I would have liked to have seen a complete move away from them. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. It's still amazing,
Yeah. Okay, for number 3 then, our third best game of the year. And it's getting more difficult, to be honest. And remember, we won't be pandering to what we know everyone else will be thinking. So you might not even see your favourite in this list. But for me, it was Sea of Stars. I had very high hopes for this one based on the look of it. As superficial as that is, I very much like the look of the game. I thought it looked beautiful. And I'd played the demo and was like, okay, I kind of know what to expect here. But Sea of Stars, it's just an enjoyable, old school RPG. You can pick it up and just get on with it. It tends to have accessibility in its difficulty. The environments are enjoyable to explore, but it has a puzzle element to it as well. There's lots of little hidden secrets and stashes to find. There's one memorable area at the beginning of the game where it's like lots of waterfalls and stuff, and it just looks unbelievably good.
Yeah.
And I found myself just going back to the start. It gives you like ways of getting back up to the top of the mountain, just to go different routes down these waterfalls to find the hidden items and stuff. I just really, really like this game. Despite if you actually pulled out every mechanic, you could really pick some holes in it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
But it stuck with me, and it's just great, and I think it's well worth its place for me as third on this list.
Yeah, nice. It's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of people say they're bored of pixel art these days. I don't know how you could ever be bored of pixel art, because for me, pixel art is what a video game is, and always has been. It was made out of pixels.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, technology dictates that doesn't have to be the case anymore. But why on earth would you ever criticise a game for using, the absolute bread and butter of what games used to be? And when games these days can do it as well as this, it looks incredible, doesn't it? And it looks timeless.
Yeah, the whole I'm bored of insert X style, I think is a bit of a silly thing to say, just because there will always be exceptions, even to your own rule,
Sure.
Someone will come along and make something look completely fresh in the same style. It's just I kind of get what I think they're saying is that generic style of anything, 3D, pixel art, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That lazy style,
Yeah.
basically. But this looks incredible, like Glen says, and that's why it's my number 3. Great game.
Lovely job. Right, my third place then for the year is Dredge. Now, this was when we did this list halfway through the year, and this was at number 1, so it has moved down a little bit. But that's, not a mark against the game at all, because it's amazing. And it's basically a time management game to some extent, where you need to go out and fish and obviously dredge and try to recover items and goods and complete quests for people on this island. And you need to be back by nightfall, because you're warned the seas are not a good place to be at that time. But obviously, the further into the game you get, the more people ask of you, the more you need certain things or certain fish that only come out at night. And as you venture out, you start to realise that they weren't joking. There is something very dangerous about these seas. And it's pulled off fantastically well. It's done so well. And it has that Lovecraftian element to it in terms of the unknown, what's beneath the sea. it doesn't, to begin with, it doesn't show much at all. You know, it starts to show a bit more as you go on. But the way it builds that horror, in terms of its inspiration of that Lovecraftian way of building horror, is fantastic. And the gameplay itself holds up very well, and you never get bored of what you're having to do, even if you're basically going out on runs each day and doing the same thing. You know, there's always a new island, there's always a new quest, there's always someone that will say something to you, and you know, there's always that fear of not getting back in time. And obviously you upgrade your ship as you go, and that starts to allow you to go further out. It's such a good game, to the point where I don't think you even need to like horror to play it and love it, you know?
It's funny because I hear a lot of the same elements that I enjoyed in Dave the Diver.
Yeah.
You know, it seems there's some parallels there. Almost like they've taken the compelling aspects of a roguelite and put it into a package that actually tells the full story, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, obviously, both being sea-based, just how different a story you can tell.
Nautical.
Nautical indeed, yeah.
Well, right, we are right up to number 2.
Yep.
Number 2. And my second best game, personal choice of the year, is Tears of the Kingdom.
Yep, okay.
Now, it's funny because there were a lot of people saying, oh, this is exactly the same game. You know, you've got the same map. I feel that's a little bit unfair.
Yep.
I get it, you know, you've got the Hyrule, you've got the same map in some regards, but you've also got a load of new stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you can call it the same map when you head to the Underdark kind of area, the underground, and it's like huge, massive space that you can explore. And you go to the skies and you've got all these islands that didn't exist. You've got a load of dungeons that weren't in the other one. But it's more than that. The mechanics are totally different, you know, with the building mechanic can make it feel, I don't know, like a different game in terms of being able to build vehicles and all sorts, flying things. And I am one of those people that will spend 2 or 3 hours just making stupid things.
Yeah.
You know, and not actually playing in air quotes the main experience of the game. And in fact, I think I haven't finished it because I'm still just mucking about doing silly things.
Yeah.
It is a time sink, like one of the biggest time sink games I've seen in a long time. If you really do want to push your way through it. I mean, we saw over the year, we'd be like, what are you playing? People would be like, I'm still on Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
I'm still on Tears of the Kingdom. I'm 250 hours in. I'm still on it, you know. So I think maybe that's why our list doesn't reflect your list, because we have less time.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, having time to fully appreciate a world in a game such as this does so much for how much you ultimately enjoy it, or you know, how high you would rank it. Objectively, that's different.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, now the dust has settled, I think I prefer Breath of the Wild because of its simplicity.
Yeah.
I enjoyed, this was the first time I'd seen Hyrule looking like this.
Yeah.
You know, that first wow moment. I enjoyed the fact that you were just, you know, a simple man. You didn't have the ability to create these huge vehicles, albeit you did have powers in that game. But, and it was just, it wasn't linear, but it just wasn't as big as this one.
Yeah.
I liked that, you know. It doesn't take anything away from this game, which is amazing, and fair play to Nintendo for attempting to follow up on that game and pulling it off, because they have pulled it off. Do you know what I mean? And what a great game for the Switch to have. My second place game then for the year is another Nintendo first party title. I'll be honest, at the start of the year, I fully expected this to be top, but it isn't, and that's Pikmin 4.
I thought you were going to say Football Manager.
No. Pikmin 4, yeah, I mean, this game has been promised forever. It's finally here, and it's amazing. It just didn't do a few things that I wanted it to do for it to be top, you know? It's another Pikmin game. Automatically, that shoots it up the list, because I love Pikmin. I mean, this for me is how I enjoy open world. You know, you have a relatively small area, but you have a lot to explore still. But it gets to the point where you are starting to explore the same place, and you know it well by this point. And I like that. I like it when I finally know how a world is and where everything is. That's when I start to enjoy a game. Yeah. I almost have anxiety of something being too big, you know. So for me, the Pikmin series has always catered to me very well in that respect. Obviously, just the Pikmin formula of going out and finding the bits you need, it's just great. I love the way that Pikmin plays. They've added some bits this time round that make it very accessible. They've used things like the dog that you can use to ride on. You know, when I first saw that, I was like, oh no, I'm a traditionalist, I don't want that. But then actually it's so much easier to get about. I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine. The thing that it just baffled me slightly was how they handled multiplayer. Because playing Pikmin 3 on the Switch with my wife, proper like co-op, you know, like you split screen, I'm going this way with this team, you go that way, we'll find the bits, we'll come back together. It was great. Such a good experience, and they've changed it this time. And maybe that expectation in my head of that's how it was going to be, and it not being that, I was like, oh, that's a disappointment, you know? So that stopped it from being my best game of the year, but that's not to take anything away from this series, and I hope it continues to thrive. I hope we get another one, because I love Pikmin.
Yeah, I think this is one that I would actually like more than the 1 and 2 HD versions.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm the opposite. I want a bit more.
Yeah.
And I found those were a bit too linear, you know? It was like, go do this, then the next level, go and do this. I like the idea of it being a little more.
Yeah.
You know?
A bit bigger, yeah, for sure.
Drum roll then.
Yep.
I think this is going to be a bit of a surprise to a lot of people, but my favourite game of 2023, quite clearly, like by quite a long distance and quite recently actually, is Star Ocean's second story arc.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So this was Square Enix's revisit of the second game in the Star Ocean in that series.
Yeah.
I had to kind of go back and go, you know, look at those and go, well, why have they done that? And then I found out pretty quickly it's because this one had a much better reception. You know, people absolutely loved this. It's not to say they didn't love the first one, but it wasn't as good a game from what I understand. Then I was worried, you know, do I need to have finished that to enjoy this? Not at all. Not at all. The way it starts out, you instantly know the world. It does a little recap kind of thing. And it's brilliant. Like I say a lot of the same things because they're true, basically. You know, I love sci-fi, I love space, but I also love fantasy and RPGs. It combines those two elements brilliantly.
Yeah. It
has that like HD 2D art style that I'm just loving at the moment. Does it in a slightly different way, I would say, to something like Octopath, which, you know, Octopath 2 should be an honourable mention in this list as well.
Oh, it's a fantastic game, yeah.
You know, great game. But this was such a succinct JRPG. I never found myself like wandering thinking I need to grind to do this. I never found like that kind of like annoying, oh, like you now need to head to the complete opposite side of the map. And, you know, it just felt like it respected your time. Plus the battling system was so quick, like it's action-based combat, which some people I saw in the comments were like, oh, it's boring because you're doing the same things. And I'm thinking, well, actually in most JRPGs, you do end up doing the same things.
Oh, for sure. You get your favourite moves, don't you? And you plough through them. And
Exactly. But here it's just quick. You know, you go in, you fight, you come out. You can look from a distance. The enemies are given a colour, so you know how difficult it's going to be.
That's clever, yeah.
You know, just drop in and drop out.
Yeah.
But then there's a system of jobs, you know, which feels reminiscent to some of their other games, you know, Bravely Default. But the job system, you can basically, each character has their own ones. But once you've leveled them up enough, they'll then work together to create better versions of each of those jobs. For example, cooking. One gets good at cooking, another one gets good. They can then create these like master dishes together. I love that. And I understood that. Weirdly, I understood it very quickly just by playing.
Yeah.
I went into the menu, I was like, oh, what's this about? You know, I'm doing a review, I got to figure this out. Just randomly assigned things and then was like, oh, okay, it clicked very quickly. So I think it's important to understand the job system to fully enjoy this game. And when you do, it's like, wow, that's such a clever way of adding skills and abilities that are optional for the most part, you know. But they just give it a little edge on a lot of JRPGs and RPGs that are out there. The story as well, like, just, it's great. It's really good. I haven't enjoyed an RPG story as much since back in the Final Fantasy VII days, which is a big statement, really, because we played a lot. And it's come after things like Triangle Strategy, which has an incredibly branching narrative. But again, sometimes less is more. Maybe I don't want to branch. Maybe you tell me the story.
You wrote it,
Exactly. And what I will say is end game, it gets a little bit... It makes a few little mistakes that we've seen before that can drag things on a little bit, or you put in some difficulty spikes. It doesn't do everything perfectly, but it doesn't need to for me to still enjoy it the most.
What I will say to you, with that in mind, 100% go back and replay Bravely Default 2.
Yeah.
Because what you just said about having to understand the job system to fully enjoy it is 100% that game in a nutshell. The asterisks system, as it's called there, the way you combine those, not across characters, but between, like within one character, because you can have elements of two different jobs, and you start to find, if I use that power from that job, but I combine it with the power from this job, I have a move that's going to destroy everyone, or I have a healing power that's going to do this, so I can buff people to do that. I think if you gave it the time...
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right, because I do remember thinking, like, because I was almost like brute forcing my way through bosses in that without fully understanding, that side of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, lovely. So that is my number one. What is your number one, Mr. Glenn?
Well, mine is one that I wouldn't have expected to be, I'll be honest.
Football Manager?
It's not Football Manager. That's not on this list. But it came out in January, funny enough.
Yeah.
And it's Fire Emblem Engage.
Nice.
Now, when I say I wouldn't have expected it, I have to say that I have been a fan of this series for a long, long time. So it's not that this game is new to me or anything, but after Three Houses, which changed a few things, and is a great game, don't get me wrong, all power to that game for once again reinvigorating this series. But it changed things that I wasn't as much of a fan of. And whilst I was happy for the series, I kind of thought maybe my time with the series is done now. Like I'm like an old custodian that's stepping back. On you go, Fire Emblem, go and enjoy the adulation of the new masses. Yeah. And then they made this game, and they brought back a lot of the things that I loved, and here I am again,
Yes.
It's just lovely. I'm not even a big tactical turn-based fan, and if you'd have said to me at the start of the year, your number one game is going to be a tactical RPG, I would have assumed you meant the Advance Wars game that came out this year, because that's another series I've loved over the years. But no, this one is amazing. I really enjoy the story. Some people have said that they didn't as much. I think it's great. Love the way it's told, cutscenes, but never too intrusive. The combat is as good as it's ever been.
Yep.
You have the new element, or at least new for me, of that. You have the emblem rings. So you attach a classic character from the past to a new character, and you can combine, engage, hence the name, and they then have new powers.
That's cool.
So they wear a ring of like an old, long dead hero from another game, and they come together.
Yeah, I like that.
They added the time rewind system. I forget the name of it now, apologies. But again, in terms of keeping your characters alive, made that so much more enjoyable. It wasn't that feeling anymore of like getting 3/4 of a way from a map, losing a character and just screaming into a pillow that you got to do it again, but being too stubborn to want to accept the easier way of getting rid of permadeath. It's a nice happy medium, and it doesn't guarantee wins, it doesn't guarantee people stay alive. Sometimes you have to start again still because you've ballsed up so badly that no matter what you do now, it's inevitable. It's just a great game. Like I'm nearly finished it now. I think it's got 26 chapters. I think I'm on about chapter 18, so getting there. And I like it more the more I play it. It's not even a case of it starting to grind now, I'm doing all the side bits and bobs which I never do in games. Brilliant.
So there you have it. Those are our favourite games. Decent list.
Yeah, good list, I think. A few perhaps surprises in there. That's what it's all about, isn't it, to be honest?
Definitely. And let's be honest, having just looked at the Game Awards, what's coming next year is pretty... I don't know what's coming. It's looking... Obviously, we've had our video where we've picked out, but in terms of other things, are we going to get the new console?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens for the Switch in 2024. I think it's going to be a defining year, one way or the other, to be perfectly honest. But it always does interest me seeing our lists and 5 games. They're very different, aren't they? They're always very different. I don't think, or very rarely do we have to change one of ours because the other person's picked it.
No.
Which is quite funny, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
To always have different tastes. But there you go. Like I said, that's what it's all about. So, again, just one more time before we finish, thank you to Untold Tales for sponsoring this series. It has been so helpful. We cannot, explain just how great it's been to have them on board. Please do check out their sale, up to 90% off, as we said. Thank you to the very generous person that donated the Switch OLED that we will be giving away very, very soon now. Please do make sure you get your comments in there on all the videos if you want to be in with a chance of winning that. As well as thank you to anyone else that donated anything, such as the physical game that we're going to give away. Forgive Me Father, I think is the name of it, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got another few other bits and bobs as well that we'll be giving away.
Absolutely. And just thank you to everyone who's watched our content over the year. It's very humbling to see the numbers that we've seen over the year and the growth that we've had since we started this channel. So please just take it when we say it, we mean it from the bottom of our hearts. That it's amazing. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. To our patrons, our members, and all of you, have a very Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. Happy Christmas. See you soon enough for another video. And until next time, happy gaming.
And now, the time has come. The final...
So, no, now the end is near.
Yeah, that's it.
It's on my fear.
Yeah.
The final curtain.
Well, both excellent sets of words.
We improvised.
It's just an example.
There is any difference. Mine was impromptu. So.
Exactly.
Not that I should get any extra points for that. different words have equal meanings. Yeah, way.
Yeah, so. But you sang it well, so. Well
Thank you very much. Yeah, you know.
It's a nice jumper there.
Thank you.
That expensive.
I bet.
Not that I've told you that, Peter.
And if anyone does say, by the way, someone could say it, say I wore last year. Bit creased though, isn't it? I literally, if you missed it, pulled it out of the packet 2 minutes before we started.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there was no time to iron it, just to
It's
make it.
becoming a thing, isn't it?
Which I'm not some like, little grubby little hermit that just got up this morning and
I think I might have even slept in this.
fair enough.
It was cold last night. Come on. Everyone does that, don't they? No? You ever sleep in a jumper?
I don't wear it next day.
Well, only got it yesterday. It was like a new thing. I wanted to try it out.
A novelty, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still freezing. I was still shivering in bed last night. We've been ill, in case you hadn't noticed. In case that hasn't given it away. Yeah.
Dracula's used you for a snack.
Out of order.
True though.
Very true.
True.
Very true. And I'm normally the tanned one. All right, okay, let's get on with this.
Okay. Just before we finish, right, we're just going to go to B-roll for a minute. Wait.
Oh, no.
Because I want to take you behind the camera. Okay.
Behind the lens.
Shatter some illusions. There's my stall. Just to make that. Right. Here's Mark's. Okay, so we look pretty similar in height, don't we? 6'3" that I am. 6 foot. 6 foot.
6 foot something.
The Mark is just gonna shatter everyone's illusions. How many cushions is that, mate?
That's, well, there might be another third one in the middle.
Probably.
That's 2 thin cushions.
Yeah, they look pretty chunky.
Super thin.
Super thin. You sure, mate?
6'1". 6'1",
Yeah.
and a bit.
6'1",
And the rest.
6'1" and 2 cushions.
And the rest. Tell that to the doctor.
Well, I'll just put my thumb in front of it. Sorry, this is the least professional bit we've ever done.